I started doing this weekly Q&A series on this YouTube channel where I do a Q&A. I think it's a good way for me to get out of my comfort zone, and I think it is a really good way to build more of a community within here on this YouTube channel and within my social media platforms, where if you have a question where you are interested within my personal or professional life, or any questions, even if it's about my disability or anything, I wanted to do a Q&A where, you can get to know me on a deeper personal level. And for me, it benefits you because you can ask a question and I can answer it. So, it brings value, or it answers any wondering thoughts that you have out of curiosity about my life. And I get to answer it. So it brings you value. And a benefit for me is I hope that some of these questions will lead for me to really step out of my comfort zone, which is going to help me with my communication skills, and it's going to help me really step out of the comfort zone and really embrace my vulnerability, depending on the context of the question. Now, I posted on my Instagram, if you have any questions, please, drop them below, and hopefully I will make a video on it, if it was appropriate, right? And one particular person asked this great question, which was, what is one thing you would love to accomplish? Now, for me, there are a lot of things I hope to fulfill and accomplish within this lifetime. Like, there are a lot of extraordinary plans, I guess you would say. I call them extraordinary because no one in the history of the world, at least up to my knowledge, has done what I can only hope to fulfill, being in my position, having a progressive disability, and being quite severely limited, having SMA. So I keep those dreams close, and it is something I hope to fulfill. But one thing I really hope to fulfill within this lifetime, and by the way, those dreams are immensely good for both, those around me, those who will be involved with my projects, such as eventually building a team and having people around, right? Building a team and trying to help fulfill this dream. When you have really big dreams, you cannot just be a one-man show or a one-person team. When you have really big dreams, you're going to need to build a team to get there. And yeah. But I wanted to answer this question with that my twin actually had asked, and I call her my little sister because I'm older by a minute, but my twin had asked this great question, which was, what is your next achievement you'd love to accomplish? Now that was a great question. My next achievement I would really hope to accomplish, there are several I hope will be my next achievements. But one thing I really hope to fulfill, hopefully this year, 2025, is I would love to write a book and become a #1 New York Times best-selling author. Now that is one, in my eyes, extraordinary big dream to reflect off of my past, where I was, growing up with a progressive disability, going to school for several years up to the 3rd grade, where I was the only one in a wheelchair, feeling completely left out, to then going to school for a few short months, I want to say roughly like 2 months, where he transferred schools for roughly 2 more months, being at this new school, to be surrounded by other people who looked just like him, being in a wheelchair, having somebody that can actually relate to you, understanding being in a wheelchair and those emotions that come with being in a wheelchair. Transferring to a new school at a very young age, 3rd grade, to being at that school up to, if I can remember correctly and accurately, I was there for about maybe 2 months, 3 months max, and having to undergo a major back surgery which was a spinal infusion, which is where they have to cut up your back, put in these metal rods, because I had severe scoliosis, which resulted in me having a severe infection, which led me to being hospitalized for 2.5 months and having a large portion of those 2.5 months of me Monday through Friday, I'm not exaggerating here, Monday through Friday, going in and out of the OR so they can help clean out these metal rods, where they had to do a spinal debridement, take out these metal rods, put a sponge in my back to help close and heal my wound, because I had a big hole in my back. Literally, you could see inside my back. I don't want to get too detailed because I don't know if this video will get demonetized later, but to go through all of that, to then being on home studies, almost lost train of thought, to then being on home studies for 2 years, which was my 5th and 6th grade year, because as you can imagine, that was quite the extensive of a procedure and surgeries going on for quite some time, right? And to then go into middle school, that was quite the experience. Me being me, I like to test the waters a little bit. I'm more of the curious one, that can both hold its pros and cons, have its upsides and downsides, where, I always wanted to get into soccer, and that's a whole story within itself, but I always wanted to get into soccer. Long story short, I ended up managing to play soccer with my wheelchair using a basketball during recess at lunch, 8th grade year, and I ended up managing to flip my wheelchair. Resulted in me having a concussion and being on home studies for like 2 months, roughly, 2 to 3 months. That was quite the experience as well. So then being in high school, going to high school was quite the experience. I personally loved it while I was there. I missed about a large 50, 60, maybe a little bit more % of my entire 4-year high school experience, just because I always kept getting pneumonia and collapsed lungs, where I was either in regular administration, being in the hospital, and if I wasn't there, I was in the ICU for a period of time, where many conversations, doctors would enter the room and ask me, do you have your wishes in order? And those conversations are not the easiest to kind of take in, especially when you're young and you're a kid, and it's just possibilities. Certain positions I was in, me not looking too well and doing too well, and you wondering if you will see another light of day. Those are not the easiest things to endure through, and not just me, but for my mother as well, her right there at my bedside, and her seeing her son going through what he was going through, and to wonder that what if factor, what if, like this is it, right? So then going into fast forward, and then high school graduation, I was in the ICU. That's a whole story within itself. That became a whole media press coverage. I was in the press because I was in the ICU. It became a big thing because there was a whole story behind it as to how important it was for me to graduate and receive my diploma. That was quite the experience and a blessing to have Valley Children's Hospital, who I call my second home, because I grew up with them for so long, right, for a large portion of my life, and built great relationships there too. And to have my high school as well coordinate with the hospital to help fulfill my dream of me attending my high school graduation ceremony, receiving my diploma where Valley Children's, because again, I was in the ICU at the time, and Valley Children's and my high school coordinated a pretty good thought out plan where I had my own medical team, got transported via ambulance, and went to my high school graduation. There was a whole story on that. You can check out on my website. You can even Google my name and find it as well. So that was quite the story. But to then, after high school, pursue community college, because that was just like the norm. Pursue community college, and I majored in business administration. And that didn't go out too well. The accommodations for me, not just for me, but the accommodations in general for the disabled community was not the greatest. I don't know how it is now, so I can't make a comment with present time. But when I was there, the accommodations of me needing certain assistance, me needing things with my backpack, or me ending up in the hospital. Can I do my work at home? There was just a lot of stuff that was way different from high school and college, where unfortunately it led me down to. I'll give you a quick story. I was in college. First day of college, I attended. While I was in classes, I approached every single one of my professors. Either it was the beginning or the end of the class lecture. It was more so towards the end because I had my privacy while every other student walked out. And I told them who I was, and I also shared with them, like, hey, around November, December, I tend to get sick with pneumonia and collapsed lungs. I'm not thinking negatively, but, I, statistically speaking, and my track record, I will be in the hospital November or December. Every single professor, they all said the same thing. During that conversation, I would share them with the possibilities that would happen, so they already knew more so what would happen. So that way, if I went MIA out of nowhere, or if I send them an email, I'm in the hospital, they kind of more or less knew the possibilities that what would happen. It's not completely out of the ordinary, right? And I also shared with them, like, hey, can I do this? If I'm unavailable to come to class, like, is it okay if I do the work here at home? And every single professor said the same thing. They all said, well, we will cross that bridge when we cross it. Unfortunately, I had to cross that bridge where I got dropped from all of my classes. So me being my optimistic, positive self, I was like, okay, you know what? First semester was a complete loss and waste of time. At least that's what I thought in the moment, Reflecting on it now, knowing what I know now, nothing is ever a waste of your time. There was always some form of experience, some form of learning within those life experiences, whether they turn out to be good or bad. It's simply just a matter of perspective. So, me being my optimistic, positive self, I started doing my second semester doing online classes. That was a story within itself. I did not like it. I dropped out. Fast forward to like a month, maybe two after I dropped out from my second semester doing online classes. And the reason why I thought about online classes is because if I get sick, well, guess what? I can just do my work in the hospital, or I can do it here at home. Whatever the case would be. It was just more convenient, if I happen to fall ill, right? So that's why I ended up doing online classes. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. There's more of the story. There's more of a story to that. But I didn't like it. Dropped out. About a month, maybe two after that, I was playing the game and I was like, you know what? Like, this is just not it. I'm waking up and I'm going to bed doing the exact same thing. I'm able to predict the next day, like 99% of the time, down to the T about what's going to happen. You're going to wake up, wash up, get ready for the day, eat, play the game, wait for the day to pass, and call it a night, right? Next day, same thing. So my life became very repetitive for a long period of time. I didn't like that. And I always just had this, I always aspired, to have a little bit more, and let me explain by what I mean by that. Not just more, like I'm very appreciative to be given this life, It hasn't been the easiest, despite what you may see on camera. It hasn't been the easiest. It's been very challenging. There's both stuff that I have shared openly, and there are a lot more stuff that I personally keep to myself, and quite frankly, I don't think I ever will share. There's a lot that has and does happen off camera. That's not the easiest to endure through, whether that's with my SMA, whether that's with my personal life, whatever the case may be. There is always a lot more than what meets the eye. And so where I was going with that is, fast forward, I was inspired to do more. I inspired more, started playing the game. I ended up having like an epiphany moment where I was like, you know what, like you say you want this kind of lifestyle, but what are you doing to get there? Like, what are you doing? I'm literally in the middle of playing GTA 5. I will never forget. I'm playing GTA 5 on my PS4 console. And while I'm playing the game, I'm like, okay, you want this lifestyle? What are you doing to get there? And I started thinking of a lot of these different thoughts started to come into mind, a lot of questions I started to ask. And that night, I started to ask better questions. Questions that would result in me getting to that lifestyle, which resulted into me, after extensive research and doing my diligence, I ended up in entrepreneurship that following month. Fast forward, then I entered entrepreneurship 2018. So in 2018, I dropped out of community college. 2017, I graduated high school. 2018, dropped out of community college. Shortly after dropping out, ended up pursuing entrepreneurship in 2018. It was around March I got into entrepreneurship, if I remember correctly. And it was around March or May. I know it was a month that started with an M. I think it was in March or May. I think it was more so March. Maybe May. Anyhow, I ended up getting into e-commerce, ended up making my first dollar while I was asleep, which was huge for me. That was like the ultimate goal. If I can make money when I'm asleep, perfect, because if you can make money while you are awake, and you can also make money when you're asleep, think about the possibilities. Think about the possibilities that lie there, and for where I wanted to go, I needed to make money in both ways. Fast forward to present time, is although I am not where I had hoped to be. At the age of 21, I dreamt I would be a millionaire by 21. That wasn't the case. But it's not so much I wanted to be a millionaire. It's because, I cannot speak for everybody with SMA. This is just my personal life experience and the way I view my personal life and just the way who I am. Having a progressive disability, one, it teaches you to appreciate life. Because while you have this progressive disability, and more so in my case, and you have a low immune system by default, because your organs are not as strong as the average person, and you end up in the hospital as many times as you do. You end up in the ICU as many times as you do. You oftentimes see death more frequent than most. And because of that, it makes you appreciate life. To put it simply, I never valued the breath of life until it was almost taken away from me. And two, having this progressive disability, you're constantly hearing you hear growing up, you may not make it to 20. You may not make it to 25. You may not make it to 30. Due to statistics. So when you grow up with the mentality that you might not make it to receive your high school diploma, you might not make it through high school, you might not make it to see the age of 18, you may not make it to see the age of 21, and you start breaking, I don't want to use the word expectations, but you start breaking the norm or the statistics because the odds are forever against you. You're not supposed to make it to 18. Okay, made it to 18. The bar gets further out. You're not supposed to make it to 21. You make it to 21. The bar gets pushed further. You're not supposed to make it to 25. You make it to 25. The bar gets pushed further. Now for me, reflecting on my life and seeing more so how much I fell ill with my recent hospitalization experience in December 2024, will I make it to 30? Is that even really possible? Or am I delusioned that I will make it to 30? I don't know. I guess we're going to have to wait to see till I get there. Will I get there? But the purpose of me bringing that up is because when you have that mentality, will I make it? Do I really have time? Like a lot of people, if you do not have a health diagnosis, more so a progressive one, you can have the mentality, I can, if I mess up my 20s, I can have my 30s to figure it out, make things better. I have time. I have 10 years on me, depending on your age. If you're my age, which is, I am at the time of this recording, I am currently 26. Let me rephrase that, not normal people, because you are normal. But the average person who is my age, 26, doesn't have a health diagnosis, more so, again, a progressive one. You can have the mentality of, you know what? I can mess up 20 to 30 years of my life. By the age of 50, I can set myself up for life. Or if you're really ambitious like me, you can be 26 and be like, you know what? By the age of 30, I am going to have XYZ. I am going to be living this lifestyle, and I am going to make sure that my mother, my parents, my siblings, my family are going to be taken care of financially. And you can work ridiculously hard in your 20s, financially set yourself up so by the time you are 30, you can almost nearly retire. You probably can retire. You can retire by 30, depending on how ambitious and determined you are. I've seen it happen. But more so when you're really ambitious and you're determined, you really don't retire because you eventually find something that you really love. So you may be able to retire maybe about 90%. But there's always going to be like that slight ounce or that slight urge, where you have to do the next thing. Where you have to do something. Because eventually, while you live this extravagant lifestyle, driving these nice cars, having these nice mansions, partying if you're into that kind of thing, eventually that lifestyle is going to end up just like the lifestyle you currently have, which is this it? Is this life? Is this all there is to life? So back to what I was saying, to having this progressive disability is now, this bar gets pushed further and further. And having this bar, having me breaking a lot of these barriers, I do what I absolutely can, so that way, when my time is up, I know I can rest. I know I can rest knowing my mom is taken care of financially. Her house paid for. She's in her dream home. Now she has a dream home. I picture something a little bit different, bigger. Nothing wrong with that. But I picture something a little bit different, a little bit bigger, and I make sure she's in her dream home. I make sure there's a team, that takes care of this home. Because she's getting older, right? And again, when my time is up, right? I know she's taken care of. The house is taken care of, the bills are taken care of. And I know she is taken care of for when she gets older. Because what is going to happen, the norm is, when your parent grows older and they really get to that age, who's going to take care of them? Many people, many children do not think, where is my mom or where are my parents going to end up when they get older? Many people don't think about that until it's like something happens or they get older and they really just don't know what to do. Like, how do you not think of something that is going to happen? They're getting older. Like, that's what a birthday is. Your birthday is to celebrate a milestone, celebrate life. But it's also like, hey, I'm getting older. So my mentality is, who's going to take care of her when she gets older? Now that's what I hope to fulfill when my time is up. If I don't make it to 30, I hope to fulfill a certain financial position where, again, if I don't make it to 30, or even, when my time is up, I know she is taken care of financially. Her home is taken care of. Every single thing that involves money is taken care of. And then there's even like bigger things, bigger than that. I won't go too much in detail here because this is already a long enough video. But, if there's like something arises, maybe there's a health diagnosis that occurs. And, what if insurance doesn't cover it? That's a big issue. Now, what if, because you went the extra mile, you went the extra strength, you went the extra mile, you put in the extra effort, you went through all of these sacrifices. What if these sleepless nights, these ridiculously early mornings, these sleepless nights where you're constantly thinking, what's my next move? Or if I'm working on XYZ, now what do I have to think about after XY? What do I have to think about after doing XYZ? What's my next step after that? What's my next step after that? Okay, once I do XYZ, then what do I have to do? Or what are some hindrances or problems are going to happen within this process? What are some roadblocks maybe? What are some potential worries, threats even, depending on the thing you aspire to do? All right, there's so many different things that go on. You have the sleepless nights, you're thinking about all these movable factors that you have to add to your equation. Excuse me. Then you have these early mornings where, your mind is just going and going and going. You finally found a way to sleep, take a power nap, like about an hour or two, Your mind is just constantly going. You wake up at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You just cannot sleep. So, because you can't sleep, you're like wide awake. You start educating yourself, or you start, again, following up with your recent thought before you went to sleep. Okay, what do I gotta do next? Your mind is constantly going. That's how it is in entrepreneurship. You have late nights, early mornings. Often, 99% of the people do not see. And even if they do see it, depending on the kind of person you are, if you are someone like me who is very private, and they ask, hey, how come you didn't sleep? Or, hey, how come you're tired? Or whatever. Make up an excuse. You don't exactly tell them why. Why? Because they don't understand. And because someone doesn't understand, well, they might give you more comfort, or give you so many reasons as to, hey, it's okay to slow down, or hey, it's okay to take some rest. And you should, if it becomes a health concern, and once you draw attention to that. Once it starts to affect your health, then you really should start to slow down and take some rest and listen to these divine messages. If you're spiritual, slow down. It'll happen when the time is right. So, to reflect back off of the beginning of this question is, when you have this mentality, when you have this progressive disability, you really don't know what tomorrow brings. So I hope something that I would really, really love to accomplish this year, 2025, is to write a book, get it published, figure out that process, and keep doing what I'm doing now, putting one foot in front of the other. Have faith. Stay humbled and grounded, where I do not lose sight of who I was, who I once was. I do not lose sight of where I have been. I do not lose sight, of the person I was. I don't lose sight of the little Victor. And I hope I can build these strong enough foundations where it lasts me a lifetime to stay true to the values within my core, hold certain philosophies of mine that I both share publicly to other people, to stay strong, resilient, keep the faith, continue to put one foot in front of the other, learn as you go, learn from your mistakes. And I hope I never lose sight of certain philosophies that I hold extremely close to me, but unfortunately, I won't ever share with anyone. For two reasons. One, they're very personal. And two, there's certain philosophies that can do extreme that can lead to bad. Certain philosophies in the wrong hands is not the greatest thing. It's not a good thing. So there's certain philosophies that I keep to myself because again they're personal, and there's certain philosophies of mine that I have to that I will keep to myself because in the wrong hands, it can do more harm than good. So I'm very mindful of that, and I hope I stay true to that value. And I really hope, that I really can become a #1 New York Times best-selling author. To me, that would be extraordinary. Again, to reflect off of everything I've been through, everything I've gone through, both, in the public eye, and both visible to the human eye, and also, enduring the things that happened, even happens, because this journey is still going, and getting to that milestone, to me, it's extraordinary. It's a miracle. Me being here is a miracle. I have no doubt about that. I am a very, very, very spiritual person because of my past. And I also forgot to mention, after undergoing after going through college and going through entrepreneurship and all these different things, it led me being on a psychiatric hold where more than once, and that led me down to a very dark spiritual path, that I call a spiritual warfare. And ever since that experience, I do not say this lightly, Jesus really did save my life. It wasn't a book that saved my life. It wasn't like someone handed me a rosary or a cross, that saved my life. No, it was like I was sedated for several days, and there was just something that happened while I was asleep during those several days, because I was, again, just really, really going through it. And there was something that happened within that experience where when I woke up, I instantly just kept calling Jesus my brother. And I built a very solid, great relationship with him. And I also built a very solid, great relationship with the Divine, who is the Most High, who is the boss man, And so to reflect off of those experiences and to, be a #1 New York Times bestselling author. And even not just fulfill that, but to fulfill all of my other aspirations. It'd be huge. It'd be extraordinary. It wouldn't just benefit my life, back to, how my mom's getting older and certain people, certain people around me are too getting older. And I see certain things where many people, from the looks of it, they don't really have a plan, for the next decade. And as much as they don't have a plan, doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Meaning, if you stay to the end of this video, it's because you value my words. You are very curious. And who knows, maybe you see me as one that can help you get to that next step or help you reach your breakthrough moments. And if that's the case, that means you are a very unique, strong individual. For the mere fact, which is why I am going to say what I am going to say next. When your mom is getting older, when those around you are getting older, and you see certain things that they fall short to see or prepare for, more so when it comes to financially, be humbled. Don't become arrogant. Know that what God gives, He can also take. Always pay it forward, helping other people, regardless of who they are, regardless of their social status, regardless of how they look, regardless of whom they may believe in, whom they may believe in, what they may believe. Stay grounded and rooted in faith. And just because, when you're growing up and you're coming up from a bloodline that hasn't seen anything near what it is you dream of, just because it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it can't happen for you. You are incredibly resilient. And just because something hasn't happened yet, it doesn't mean it can't happen for you. I believe you are the one that is meant and destined to do what others don't, which is go the extra mile. Do what others fall short on. Meaning when they go, they get pushback, and they quit, you don't. When you go and life starts to get harder and harder for you, that is a very, very, very good sign for you. Especially when you are experiencing new problems. How and why? Because when you are experiencing new problems, that is because you are really, really, really trying to get to the next step, to reach that breakthrough. So if you can remember anything from this video, I don't know what your dream is. I hope it is filled with immense good, positivity, love, and know that if someone is living the lifestyle you aspire, there is nothing different from them to you. Don't fall into the victim mentality that they didn't have the lives, they didn't go through what I went through. They don't have the disability that I have. Don't get into that mentality. Start asking yourself the right questions. How can I get there? How can I make that happen? Don't tell yourself when you see certain things happening. Maybe you see a YouTube video of someone, paying off their mother's mortgage, helping out their family. Don't tell yourself, I can't afford that. Start asking yourself, how can I afford that? How can I make that happen? That is where your power lies. Excuse me, I got a little bit emotional. This video turned out to be a lot longer than I had originally anticipated. But I hope this video brought some form of value to and for you. And I also want to mention that if you happen to be an extraordinary individual, and this might spark controversy, it's fine. But, if you're someone who dreams extraordinary and you dream of things that hasn't exactly happened yet, for example, let's say Elon Musk wasn't Elon Musk yet. He was still in the come up era. When Elon Musk was probably thinking to himself, I dream of rockets doing XYZ. And just because it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean that it can't happen. Why? Because you are that extraordinary visionary to make that very thing happen. Now, I wanted to mention that, because for example, Walt Disney as well. He dreamt of a theme park. And he dreamt of these characters, being like, he dreamt of this theme park being like the number one happiest place on earth. That didn't exist. At one point, nothing in life has existed. There was no car at one point. There wasn't an air conditioner at one point. This power wheelchair wasn't here at one point. The TV, cell phone, all of these different things, that you utilize and see, even when you eat, the utensil you eat from. That didn't exist at one point. So when you become an extraordinary visionary, understand it is not going to be easy. It's not supposed to. And your path is going to be extremely difficult. You are going to experience, those moments when you're going to cry in your room, have a breakdown. You're going to have those experiences, when you start having that poor me mentality. Why me? But I want you to ask yourself this one last question. Why not you? Because from me to you, you are unique. And how extraordinary is it for God, who created heaven and earth, looked at you and was like, you know what? Earth needs someone like you, which is why they put you here. You have a purpose here in this world. What that is, I do not know. But I can assure you that whether it is me, whether it is other people who are living the lifestyle you aspire, study them. How do they speak? How do they act? How do they behave? Do they have a book? If they have a book, you should definitely get it. Why? Because oftentimes those who are extremely successful, and by successful I'm talking about like those people who are really, really doing something extraordinary, not just for themselves, not even for those around them, but for the people. Their time is incredibly valuable. So just imagine for a moment the process of knowing their time is very valuable. They sat down, wrote a book, shared information, tools that has helped them within their life, published that book so other people can also gain that information, have access to these mental tools. So those reading it has the information and the tools to help them get to their next step. And the great thing about all of this is these pieces of information, these tools, will last you for a lifetime. To me, that's the greatest investment you can ever make, is investing into yourself. So again, this video went a lot longer than I had originally anticipated. Great question if my twin happens to see it and stick around for this long. Great question. And yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Subscribe if you are new. And remember, grow through what you go through. Much love.